walked over there
Hey.
and felt threatened.
Okay, it did. All right.
We are live and recording.
Okay, we're going to start this regular selectmen's meeting 7 minutes late. Oh, we do apologize for being late, but we lost the sound today until Margaret fixed it.
Until Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. All right, here we go. There is no privilege of the floor. Minutes of December 30th. Does anybody have any changes or additions? I read those. I did not see anything.
Didn't see anything.
How about you, Mike?
No, I actually read them.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting of December 30th. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mark, financial update.
All right.
Got it. We have no public safety. We have no public works. We're done.
Wow, that's breathtaking.
Yeah.
But I actually, because I'm picking up Ellie Knight for practice, because she and I are in the same group
Yeah.
for Oliver. I've been looking at the solar light every night.
It's on.
It's,
Last night it wasn't,
It wasn't.
but
It's
the
a
2
mystery.
nights prior to that
Yeah.
it was.
I've been-
Was.
3 nights,
It's-
yeah.
So it's a hit or miss thing.
I
Yeah.
think it has to do
Okay.
with how much daylight they actually get.
Yeah.
Well, I would think the battery would be big
Yeah,
enough
the
to hold
battery
days
is.
worth. But
Okay.
Mark, we're going to go to financial update.
Yeah.
And you're rolling in money, we understand.
Well, we did the billing for
Right.
the end of year. We also have, all of the department heads have been turning in their end of year final bills.
Okay.
I did update the expenditures. I had taken off incorrectly, I had taken off retirement. So we had to put it back on as far as bills that are remaining outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So the total that I gave you in the packet was 96,000.
Right.
It's actually this 86,155.
So it's positive 80,
Positive
roughly
86.
approximately 86,000. Although that's still subject to
Oh
change.
yes, absolutely. When the auditor comes in, we may have some
And
adjustments.
on revenues,
Revenues were about 165,000,
so
170,000.
somewhere around 250,000 in total goes into fund
Correct.
balance.
Okay.
Correct.
What is this 19.9 at the bottom line here?
That's what we have bills that are not reflected above, but we still have to pay.
Okay,
And examples of those would be our December electric bill,
gotcha.
things like that.
Now, when you include the 250, what's your estimate of what's in the fund balance now?
We will have approximately $1 million in fund balance with that 250. We have
Okay.
4,000 right.
All right, I'm going to add another $250,000. Well, I mean, I'll have to say to all the department heads, great job on keeping expenses under control.
Absolutely.
And we should pass that message on to all of them.
Absolutely.
So it was a very good job, very good year from the standpoint of money.
Yeah. And then we can talk more about the budget stuff in a minute.
Well,
we got another. Or do
minutes
you want to
here.
do it right now?
Might as
All right.
well.
So, Margaret had asked for an update on the long-term debt. So the first thing, I
Right.
put a packet there. This is bonds that we actually have right now.
Okay.
Okay, that we will be making payments on in 2014. The $482,000 one that's on the agenda today is not in here. Okay, that would be in addition to this. And also if we did anything with buildings, that is not in here. Okay.
All right.
So
let's
this
go
is
through this.
only
So
what
our
we
total
currently
debt
have.
of what we've already bonded in terms of outstanding principal at this time is about $2.5 million.
That's correct.
That's the outstanding principal. So some of
That's
this principal may have been paid off. And
No, that is the principal existing on 12/31/13
for those notes. All
for
right.
these notes.
And all to the right are new items we're anticipating.
No, all to the right are the items that make up that $2.5 million. So these are
Oh.
each one of our existing notes.
Okay.
Okay, so this just lays out all of the bonds that we have. Then the big box right here at the bottom, Bill, in the middle, summarizes it by department and by project. And then the little box over here is just my verification, my check,
Okay.
to make sure I've got everything covered. Okay.
I'm just curious,
What's-
what was the town community center?
The town community center was what we did to the parking lot over at the rec department.
Gotcha.
And
All
the
right.
moving the Curious George cottage.
Okay.
What
so
is
that-
this, this box here, ANL principal?
Annual,
Okay.
annual principal amount for each of those departments.
All right.
Okay, so we could actually, well, it's not worth it, retiring that 45,000 out of the $250,000.
We're going
for
to
the
this
Sandus-
year.
Yeah, we will, but it's not, doesn't make any sense to pay it off early because we're paying $1,500
Yeah,
for it.
that's right.
Right. Okay. All right. So our current now, how much do we anticipate? Now on top of this, we've got new bonds
Right,
that
so,
we're about to write.
so the next sheet breaks this $2.5 million down for you by department,
Right.
and within the town, it also breaks it down because we have statutory debt limits, right, for the town and the water department.
Right.
So I broke it down here into the three categories so that we can separate out what our debt margin is in each case. So the new bonds, Bill, are the third column over. It says new bonds proposed 2014,
Right.
okay? That is made up of the ambulance for the fire department
Right.
and the 235,800 is the 2014 portion of the building. Okay? And if you look at the bottom box here, you see that the total is really 800,000, but the 564,200 has previously been approved.
But was it bonded?
It was not bonded yet. Okay?
All
But
right.
it was previously authorized.
It was authorized as part of the recycling.
That's correct.
Right. So, but it
But
was
we have
never
not borrowed
bonded.
it. That's correct. We have not borrowed it.
Right. So
Okay.
we're going to add.
We're actually-
in terms of looking at the debt,
Mm-hmm.
the 2.4 is going to go up by roughly $1 million when you add the fire plus what we're going to borrow for the building of the 800.
It's actually gonna go more
Well,
than that.
if you go to the next chart, because now the water and sewer piece.
Yeah, that was the other question I had. 'Cause
Yes,
none of those
the
show water and sewer.
The water and sewer. This is an official. Well, I say an official. This is a required report in the town report. So I needed to tie this
Right.
415,800 back into the warrant. Okay.
Right.
So our warrant would reflect $418,000,
Right.
right? However, when we take the rural development loan, when we take all of the garage money, the $800,000 to
Mhm.
build the garage, if you go to the second chart, it says debt retirement plan as of FY14 CIP with garage. Okay?
Right.
We would actually this year, when we take the bond of the note
And
with
bond-
rural development
and
and,
bond
the
the rest of the
bonds
money.
and bond everything else that we're going to,
Right.
it would add $3,380,000.
We get up to a total of
a
5.2
total of 5.2 million.
2 million. How
Okay.
much is the rural development bond?
1,900,000.
So that's 1.9 plus 8.8, so that's 2.7 plus we already have about, and that roughly
and-
makes up the.
That's the other, that makes the other 6.
Okay, all right, all right. So that principally it's those two line items that drive it. Okay,
Okay?
all right.
And then you see in the future years with the rest of the CIP, you have what we're going to borrow each year moving forward,
Right,
right? So this, if we built the public works garage, this is the worst case as
Right.
far as your. You had mentioned, Bill, the last time, not wanting to get to 6 million.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
an arbitrary number,
this-
but
right, no,
that's
but
a number I
but-
get kind of,
Yes, I understand.
yeah.
And so this shows you that we don't, there are two peaks that go over 5 million, but in the next year, in each case, it shows you that we get back down below 5 million.
Sure.
And it shows you the purple line at the, near the bottom there tracks the debt payments that I'm estimating the principal portion of the debt payments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you'll see this year, if in 2014, if we build the garage, we'll go from the 520,000 that's currently in the budget estimate,
Right.
up to the $621,203. So we're going to add about $75,000, $80,000 to that line item in 2000 for the 2015 budget.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm sorry, that's actually the 621 is actually the 2014 number. That is if you decide to award the bond issue that we have on the warrant, I mean on the agenda right now today. That adds that adds $48,000 to the number,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Because I broke that down into a 10-year note.
Okay.
Okay. And then it goes up to 679,203.
And
next
what drives the next spike? Is that the fire truck?
The next spike is primarily the ladder truck.
Okay.
No, it's not. 2019 for 1,000,003 is the second phase of the building. That's when we
Okay,
go to
so
the
building phase
5,325. Yeah. The ladder truck is with the 1,180 in 2018.
And of this debt,
Mhm.
it's fair to say that half of it is in infrastructure tied up in water and sewer, right?
Correct.
Right.
So that'll be reflected on this sheet.
Right.
Where
well, they
these
account
numbers
for
are
those
gonna,
differently, right?
they do.
Yeah.
And so these numbers are gonna significantly increase for water and sewer.
Right.
When we take the rural development note.
Right. Okay.
But the question is, now that we've talked about this, how do we best, we need to think about the best way to present that to the budget hearing and to town meeting.
Well,
How
I
do you-
think before we decide the best way to present it, I'm not worried about necessarily presenting it because most of it's just simply driven by a single item, which was a decision to greatly expand the water system
Okay.
and the sewer system, right? I
All
mean,
right.
that's essentially the explanation. The only question that I have is, do we want to bond all of that? What we still have as a choice would be, do we bond the fire truck or do we simply pay cash for it
Right,
and drive up the tax rate? Or pay
Right.
part cash for the fire truck and, so it gets down more to a question of tax rate than anything at this point in time and a discussion around that. I mean,
right, and then I think I think the sheet to focus on for that is your budget summary
Right.
sheet, which
Yeah.
shows you. I'll do myself a copy. That was in your packet.
Right. Yeah, I've got a copy. This sheet
This
here. you're
this
talking
sheet
about.
right here. Yeah.
Right. And where we stand right now, assuming we do everything that we're talking about here in bonding, is the amount of money needed to be raised by taxes is going to go from 2.4 million in 2013 up to 2.7 million, which is about a 12% jump.
That's
Now,
correct.
last year we had, can you just refresh my mind, what did we reduce the tax rate?
155,000.
Which was about 3-4%?
Yes.
All right, so actually last year's tax rate went down at a municipal level.
That's correct.
All right, okay. So if you level that period out, we're actually going up, if we stay with this plan, we're still going up somewhere around 8 or 9. So the question that we have is A, do we want to, do we want to take some of the fund balance,
And bring
which
it
we can
down.
use to drive this down?
Right.
And do we want to stay with borrowing all this stuff, or do we want to borrow less and pay more cash? And that's going to have the reverse impact, which is to drive the tax rate back up again.
Right.
So the question is, how much of a tax rate do we want to?
Excuse me, would you get me a copy of the town report, please? Because it's actually more than, the 155,000 is the amount that we took out of fund balance.
Right.
I think the tax rate actually went down further, it went down more than the 155,000. I want to say it may have been in the 200s, but she can get the town report and I'll look at that.
So if
But-
if we decided to pay cash
Yeah,
for, say, either the ambulance or, have we had any bids back on the transportation plan?
yes,
And what-
all of the bids are,
And in what ballpark price is
they
that?
run from 52,000 to 100,000.
Okay.
So
they're
the
in range.
90,000 that we have
Yeah.
in there is enough. And in fact, we may be able to reduce that
That's-
90.
When I went back in history, and I was looking over the last 10, 15 years, one of the things that's noticeable is that we have a tendency now to bond more than the town certainly used to do in the past.
This money's so
Tax
cheap.
rates at one time used to be 50% higher than they are now
Right.
here. I mean, they were a lot higher because they
Oh.
basically took everything out of cash,
Right.
in terms of capital items.
We actually reduced the town budget by $189,000
Right.
from 2012 to 13.
Right.
So, and that was a 7.3% decrease.
Decrease, and then we applied another 150
No,
to it.
no, that's
That
with
includes-
applying the
So
155.
7.
So we basically would have had a flat budget last year, but we applied 155,000 of fund balance, and we turned that to a 189, 190 decrease, $190,000 decrease. So,
So it's 189. So if I took the 230,
well, it's 189.9, so 190,000.
190, yeah, that's round up. So if I took the 24 and added 190, $270. Did I do that right?
620.
262.
Yeah.
262. If we were level throughout the years, our budget this year would be somewhere around 262.
Correct.
Right. So we're up over that. We're up to about 2.7, which is, instead of being a % increase, is more like a number of probably 3 or 4%
Yeah,
increase.
about 4, yeah.
Right now. Now we're sitting on a lot of fund balance.
That's right.
Really, almost from the state's perspective, too much, right?
Right, and here's, I think we have two options. We either reduce the bonding by paying cash for the ambulance,
Right.
okay, which will impact future tax rates, and we can show that by adjusting
Right.
that chart,
Yeah.
right? Take the 180 out.
No, most people they'll
And
understand
then, or we have, this year, we have $225,000 in special warrant articles, which is the 90,000 for the transportation plan and
that. Now you were planning to
those
bond
items.
those?
No, those are all cash.
Cash.
All the rest of this, we have we have $338,000 in cash capital items. Okay,
Right.
which is anything that we're not bonding, the sidewalk tractor, the comminutor at the wastewater treatment plant, the funding to go into the emergency repairs for the treatment plant, the water and sewer systems. We've got 50,000 in there for the building upgrades, which we don't know the exact number yet. We got the 90,000 for the transportation plan. All of those things added together, and they're all
Right.
right here in this box, okay? If you take $250,000 and apply it to those things, then you're gonna reduce the tax rate by 75 cents. This increase, right? But that's a 1 year thing. So
Right,
you either
I'm
reduce it
thinking
for
we
the
should
long
take
range
the-
or,
I would think that we might wanna take the 250 out of fund balance,
Mhm.
use 180 of it to buy
The
the
ambulance.
the
ambulance.
ambulance. Yeah.
And the balance to be applied just against reducing general taxes.
One of the items.
Which I'm guessing would get us down to an overall increase of maybe 1% or 2%, something like that.
No, because the 180,000, if you pay cash for it,
Right,
this 1,529,000 in non-tax revenues includes $180,000 of bond proceeds.
right,
If you pay cash, it comes out of the bond proceeds,
Which you're
which
offset
it's
against.
it's offset, so
Yeah.
it doesn't affect this amount raised by taxes,
right.
because you keep the 180,000 expense in there, but you just replace the bond proceeds with.
So you're suggesting maybe we just wanna pay cash for the ambulance, leave everything else alone?
If we do that, it won't affect this
It's not gonna
200.
change anything,
It
it's a
won't
wash.
change anything because it's a wash.
Because he's got bond proceeds in revenue.
Right,
So the only way to get this $289,000 number down is to pay cash for one of these cash items or the special warrant articles, not the bond. If you pay for the bond, it won't affect the 289.
right.
So the transportation is a.
Is a
well,
special warrant
What
article.
we're doing is we're bonding the ambulance, but these things here, like the commuters or the building upgrades or the transportation plan, those are cash. Those
Right.
would affect, if we paid cash for these.
Well, we are paying cash for them, aren't we?
Yeah, but we're
No,
out of fund balance.
Out of fund balance. If you paid fund balance, that
That would affect
lowers
us.
What you, yes,
Yes.
right. What you use the
Because
fund
right
balance.
now, we're paying for
Right.
it out of taxes.
Taxes.
Right,
Future
right.
taxes.
That's correct.
Right.
The
Well, then I'm
2014
back
tax.
to, I'm thinking maybe the 250,
Let's spend the 250
pays
cash.
250, but make the ambulance, but out of that, pay for the ambulance, which
Okay,
means
so
there'd be 70,
70.
this number would come down by roughly 70.
That's
Which
correct.
would get it in line with
220.
where it was
Mhm.
2 years ago.
That's right.
Because we have this
right.
unusual one-term reduction in here, which is making these numbers to some extent distort a little bit.
Yeah, because then the real increase without the fund balance that we applied in 2013, the real increase to the budget, to the historical
Right.
budget line is about $30,000,
Right,
if that.
right. And I'm thinking that's sellable, you know. That's better. I mean, even though interest rates are historically low, the
Right.
ambulance has got a pretty short life to it.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, we ought to just pay
9
for
or
the
10
darn
years,
thing.
maybe
You know.
9.
And it's not like a building that's gonna be
Right.
around here for 20 years, or
Mhm.
25 years. I mean, Mike, what do you think?
I think you're on the right track.
Margaret?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
I think that's.
I think
what-
we can sell the fact that taxes are going back up, but we're gonna stress is that we're shifting back towards more of an emphasis on not letting the debt go up so much, but trying to
Right.
keep the debt down.
Right, so we're not paying a lot of debt service.
Right.
Well, we're not paying much debt services, which is why we haven't been paying a heck of a lot of attention to those interest rates are so
Right.
low. But you're reaching this point where with infrastructure in the town, I can envision 5-6 years from now, you may have to spend a fair
Mhm.
amount of money.
Mhm.
You know, nothing that's definite, but it's probably on the horizon. So you want to have the capacity to do that if that's the
Well,
case.
that gives us some flexibility too, to
Right.
go this year to work on, while we're finishing up the water and sewer project for rural development, look at places like Windsor Hill and the places where we've been having serious problems.
Right.
And potentially coming up with, I mean, that saves us 180,000 that we could put towards making some necessary infrastructure upgrades. The
Well-
water line on Greeley Hill, the things that we're having big problems with.
Yeah, if they were fixable. My guess would be that where we're gonna have to eventually spend more money on infrastructure is some of the town buildings, because, I mean, they're what, 30 years old now? Some of them are older than that, and they weren't that well built to begin with. sooner or later, we're gonna have to face into,
Mhm.
the things are gonna just fall apart.
So we can take the commutator project and the ambulance. We'll
Right.
pay for them out of fund balance,
Right,
and then I'll adjust these numbers and come back to you and show you what.
okay,
Okay.
good, all right, got it.
Yeah. When you were talking before about how we explain this to folks, I think also you need to give a re-education on the whole concept of, because this staff managed money so well in the past year, we spent X
X
number of dollars less and we had this much
Right.
more revenue coming in, and rather than just letting that sit there, we're applying it to the budget going
Right.
forward in order to basically not have as much debt
Right.
service,
Right.
and also to reduce the tax,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay?
good,
That's about a quarter, it's
We'll
about 25
work on
cents
something.
what we just did.
okay, got it. All right, so at this stage, is there anything else we need to decide on the budget? Did we talk about the, just refresh my memory, did we talk at all about the general increase in the overall compensation that's going into this?
We did review the personnel
We did,
sheet.
the personnel sheet.
There weren't
When-
any special.
Right.
There were no
There weren't any
special
specials,
changes.
it was
It was a
1.5%
1.5.
Yeah.
1.5%, and
Yeah.
the overall, including all the insurance changes and everything else.
The
is
insurance ones
projected?
were up there.
Yeah,
Insurances are up,
And
pensions
retirement.
are up.
Retirement's the biggest piece because we're in the second year of the 2-year
I'm gonna make it up.
makeup from the state not funding what used to be their
Right.
portion.
All right,
Um,
well, I don't
but
think I have any
The
questions. and
overall
I'll-
increase
but
was about.
But you're saying the
4.
last sheet you sent out with that packet is still valid?
It's still valid.
All right, well, I'll go home and take a look at that and make sure that we're all right. All right, I don't think there are any issues. So anything else at this stage we need to sign the budget?
What, do you want to put any money in for the website? This budget does not include anything for the website.
My feeling is, to the amount of money that's involved, that we absolutely should go ahead and do that.
Do you want us to, my books are open until Friday. Do you want us, because we didn't spend hardly anything against the community communications line
well, let's
Can
do
carry
it.
this
over.
year.
Go ahead and do it if you can
Why-
do it.
If I enter the contract, I can encumber that money out of this
Right.
year's budget.
Yeah.
Right,
Go.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, at that price, it's really low.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Sharon, can you check that and just make sure that it's still
Yeah,
working?
I did before, it was
Oh,
still
good.
going.
Okay.
All right.
So ambulance cash, I'm just the commentator. All right.
Department head updates.
Jim, you wanna go first?
It's okay with me.
Well, we survived the holiday experience, and a couple of problem sections in town, just with a lot of rain that we had. Now it's freezing and not draining very well, but other than that.
How much rain did we get? How much rain did we get? Did
You know, I didn't
track?
check. but
Greg
I-
said 1.5 inches.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had to have been at least 1.5 inches.
It really
It
poured
really
in here.
poured.
I had
Yeah,
some
wasn't
coming
here
from my
at the time.
basement, through the side, which
Really?
takes a lot with the
'cause the
snow
ground's
counts for it to
frozen.
get down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a bad place.
Pretty much back on track with recycle and solid waste collection.
Was it a banner week for trash?
I haven't tallied up the
Yeah.
tonnage for the week, but it, just off the top of my head, it was about normal, about
Okay.
average.
Okay.
One of the things that I'd like to point out though about trash, and Mike White told me that this was the same as last year, so no real differences. When we got behind and we have these large volumes, people panic,
Yeah.
and we did not do any recycling over the holiday period. Because people put their trash in the recycling.
Someone had mentioned that to me.
So there was zero recycling.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out how to get larger containers or something and get it set up so that we can do recycling. Because this is the second year now that
We need to take a step back on recycling and rethink through how we're trying to handle the recycle piece.
Mhm.
You know, not that I, off the top of my head, have any answers,
Right.
but running trucks up there half empty is not a solution.
Right.
That's just going to wear trucks out,
Yep.
wear people out, and so eventually we're going to have to figure out another way to do this, and whether that's a second truck and we're storing all the recycling material in an old truck that barely moves,
Mhm.
or we end up with a compactor or something. We're going to have to rethink this through. If we're going to see, you know, I'm assuming we're going to, in spite of everyone I talk to when I mention, boy, you know, this recycling thing, we're having trouble with it, you know, his response was, well, we don't want to stop recycling. We like this now, you know.
Mhm. And
So
the
I think it
people-
makes just people feel better, even though it costs them money.
they like they like it, and I think the residents, I mean, people are getting used to it, and we do a pretty good job when
Right.
we don't have these peak periods, but we're not. People panic when they can't put their trash in the trash dumpster,
Right.
and they end up putting their trash in the recycling dumpster.
Right.
And so we gotta figure out how to
Right.
address that.
So at some point in time, Jim, we're going to have to devote some energy to taking, you know, thinking this through and another way to do it, or some modifications to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
How much does a new garbage truck cost? Quarter of a mil?
We've got, well, that's how much we've.
We budgeted 230. Yeah. But that with the trade-in, that's
should be
counting the
plenty.
reduction for the trade-in. So yeah, around a quarter of a million.
What does a new one cost completely?
About 250, 260.
Well, forget about the trade-in.
No, that's without the trade-in.
Without the
It would be
trade-in, just the
250,
truck alone is
260.
250,
Mhm.
250, 260. And they're probably not going to give us a heck of a lot of for the old one, right?
Well, we're counting on about 30,000. Because we budgeted 230. So
How old is it?
7
7
8
years.
Yeah. Well, we can look at.
Who did we use to substitute
$30,000
when
for a
the
contractor is
trash
pretty cheap.
truck was being
Yeah.
repaired?
You know, if
But
that's
the-
what you're using
Um,
it for, primarily just compacting trash.
it's a small guy out of
Chris Witcher.
Chris Witcher. But
Was
his-
that very expensive?
I haven't seen the bill.
We haven't gotten the bill yet. But the problem with Witcher, the first truck he sent up here was about half
Small.
the size of
Right.
our truck. But he was already committed to his existing customers, so it took him a
Right.
while to get his big truck up here. You know, we might have better luck and be less expensive if we contract with somebody right now to come in on the holiday week.
Well, that was one of the
Yeah,
things I was
yeah.
thinking.
When I was going through,
But
like,
we
the other
can
day
get
in
those
Campton, I
numbers.
noticed that Waste Management, I
Yeah.
don't know whether, do they handle Campton's trash?
I don't know, do they do the dumpsters? I don't know.
It's all private.
It's,
But it's
Private
private in
contract.
Campton.
Right, like if Dunkin' Donuts wants a dumpster, they contact Waste Management.
Right.
And so Waste Management, they use a contract with, at some point in time, we ought to just talk to them about,
Yeah, my issue with, we have talked to them about pricing. Pricing
Yeah.
came out about the same as what it costs us
right,
to do it. The problem is, there's no flexibility. When you contract with them, you have to set out pickups.
right.
And so, if you have a peak, the problem with us being seasonal, you know, you have these peaks and getting them to respond.
Do they take recyclable materials? Are there contractors out there who do recyclables?
Sure, Witcher said that he would do recyclables.
Yeah.
He didn't care whether he was picking up trash or recyclables. Because he's going to the same place we are. I mean,
Right.
his
Yeah,
business
I
goes
just called ahead and told them to
Right.
consider him,
Waterville Valley.
Waterville Valley.
Okay, all right.
So we paid the same.
so we've
we
got
paid
some
our
options.
rate, not his
Right,
rate.
so we might be able to use someone just to take the recyclables away. we'll handle the trash, let somebody else take the recyclables.
That could be a possibility.
The possibility, so that we're back to just having to worry about one stream and let somebody else worry, because what I gather from listening to you, we've got a long way to go to get the mountain and town square to comply.
Yeah,
right?
we need to sit down with them.
Conference center, mountain.
Yeah, we need to sit down with them and explain to them how important this is
Right.
to the fiscal viability of this whole project.
Mm-hmm.
And that we don't have a problem in explaining how this project is going to fail because of the lack of cooperation.
Right.
And I would suggest that we need to get all the players at the same table and
Yeah.
be able to at least count on it, because whatever we decide to do could be the wrong thing if all of a sudden they decided to play,
Yeah, no,
Right.
I
Play
agree.
ball.
We can't,
I mean,
I think one thing that might help us in baby steps going forward, if we get the bonding and have this building up by next year,
Mm-hmm.
there will be different options we'll have by having a building there. I don't know what they are today, I don't know what they are going forward, but it opens us up to a whole bunch of new options. Agree with me, Jim?
Yep.
Where it could come down to as simple as adding a couple of dumpsters and having someone there during the busy week,
Well, that's
telling
yeah.
people, oh, that's full,
Right.
move it out, or just,
Right.
but,
Yeah, I mean, the day I
Having
was there
some.
with my recyclables, Dale happened to be down there and he said, oh, we're putting the recyclables in the
Yeah.
big green thing in the back if you wanna put them there.
yeah, where by having the
Right.
building and having
Right.
people down there,
Yeah.
it will change it, but we do have to address, maybe we can find a huge dumpster, we can dump all the small one into next to there and use it as storage instead of running. Maybe we can, it's an extra step, but maybe we can piggyback this. I have no idea, but let's see.
Okay. Public safety.
I have nothing as exciting as Jim. Nothing remarkable
Good,
to
good.
report, other than it's still fairly quiet.
How's the North Star doing these days?
Good.
All right.
And did you check out the viability of the room there?
Yeah, it doesn't have what we need for a room, but I guess there is another option that Cheryl is gonna look at for us.
Maybe one of the condos?
Maybe that might be an option. It didn't have a desk or a chair, or a lot of times the people will bring their own meals and cook, so it didn't have a kitchen.
Right.
And it didn't have any gender separation for bunk
Right.
rooms, only had one bed, so it was a little bit.
Okay.
So
We can
All
work-
right.
work it.
We'll see if we can work
So
something out.
we're still working
Yeah.
on that as far as his agreement.
Okay. I noticed that we're not going to have a rec department today. I wanted to make a comment. I was going over the budget information you set out, and I was looking at revenues. And one of the things I've noticed is the climbing wall revenue really dropped in half last
Yes.
year. And I've heard a couple of comments now from people that are they're all over there playing pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
They say that, we have 4 people running the climbing wall and 1 person climbing. I'm wondering whether the climbing wall is just kind of, whether it's worth what we're paying. I have no idea what it costs to maintain it or man it or anything else, whether we ought to,
We'll come in and
Well,
review
anyway,
that
I'm
on
just
the
passing it on.
22nd.
No, you
Yep.
don't have to come back right away. I mean, the budget, she's got to operate within the budget, but what I understand is
Yeah.
it's resource intense to
It
manage.
is, because of belaying and
Right.
safety and all that, yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, Chris has the
the
ordinance.
fireworks.
Oh, the fireworks. Yes.
Long story short, the underlined stuff is the new added stuff to the current ordinance.
Yep.
And what it does, it encompasses the private person, and it requires them to have a state fireworks license if they
Or
call that a
hire
fireworks.
someone who does.
Right.
What about the insurance issue on a private person? That struck me.
Well, we're going to require them to have insurance.
So, so that would be the licensed person.
Right.
So if you're an individual, you cannot light off fireworks, period.
You can go get a certificate of competency from the state,
Okay.
and you would be fine. under this ordinance.
But you would also have
You
to have
still,
an
in other words, you get a permit from you.
Yeah, they
Right,
gotta-
right,
yeah.
you still have to get a permit from us.
Is such a thing possible to get?
Yes,
And where do you get a certificate of competency?
State Police Headquarters in Concord.
All right.
And you have to take a test, it's like a driver's exam, you have to take a test.
That's what Donald.
Yeah,
Oh, so you have to be a licensed fireworks.
Yeah.
So
Right.
a normal person isn't going to go through this process unless they're going to light off a hell of a lot
Right.
of fireworks.
Yeah. Right.
it's like getting an endorsement on your license. If someone's really passionate about their fireworks,
Yeah.
they'll go do it, and we know that they will be safe. This eliminates, or
The ambiguity.
the person coming out for the weekend that stops in Tilton and buys a trunkload of
Yeah.
fireworks and wants to blow them off.
And will we have
So
to-
you would, in enforcing this, you'd have a tendency to go tell them, hey, you know, you cease and desist.
Right.
You can't light these off. You know, we have this ordinance. If they don't listen, you
We
fine them.
confiscate them, we can fine them. Another thing I want to point out on this, the old ordinance, is there's a $300 fee for an entity to light off fireworks, but there's a lot of discretion further on in the ordinance, and we haven't been collecting the $300 because a while back to absorb those costs from police protection and cleanup, because everyone was cleaning up. And I think it went back to Hoyt when he was doing it. He didn't want to put up the $300. He says, just bill me if it's not clean, and the town at some point agreed to do that. So we don't charge that $300. Just, I don't want
Who
anybody to
cleans
think
up
that.
after the firework companies do it?
Usually it's, Cantlin makes it a requirement when they fire off his land, so
Yeah.
Doug usually goes out there in the spring and cleans it. And Jim does the 4th of July fireworks.
And what about
Yeah.
special police detail required?
The town absorbs
We-
those.
So you're suggesting that this section 2 we might want to delete from the
No,
ordinance?
I think we should keep it in as an option. I just didn't want anybody to think that we were billing everybody $300 for every time there was a display, that's all.
Chris, does,
Should it read then that at the option of the police, we
It's in
may
the-
require?
It's in the very end, the very end of the ordinance, the above procedures and regulations apply to the display.
Okay,
The discretion for accommodations to these procedures
All right.
and regulations shall be
that's
vested.
fine.
So again, you have total discretion.
Can we get some signage that says something that fireworks is not, lighting of fireworks is prohibited except by licensed,
We certainly
or is
can.
allowed by permit?
We certainly can.
Well, we shouldn't say allowed, we should probably, I mean, we're gonna make any statement,
no,
we
I'm
make
try-
a negative statement, which is, you know,
Fireworks.
Unauthorized fireworks prohibited.
prohibited,
Yeah.
you know, unless licensed. Right, or that's fine, unauthorized, you know.
And there is the Forest Service puts a sign up.
Yeah,
on
but I think it's just
49,
so we have a couple around town,
Yeah.
people.
I think the Black Bear parking lot is one of the first places to put them.
Oh, I know, isn't that amazing? Let's find something more combustible to put things around.
Okay,
so Chris,
so Mark,
this doesn't apply to things like sparklers or
Sparklers are
anything?
fine.
Yeah.
The things that you can buy at town, at
Uh-huh.
Jugtown, the sparklers, the party popper things, those are fine.
Yeah.
Anything that has a wick, I guess, is anything that has a wick that you have to light is regulated.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to make sure town, or Jugtown or anybody else in town square gets rid of anything there.
They
don't
can't
think
sell
so.
it, they
Okay.
can't, no, the
Okay,
state won't
good.
allow
Alright,
it, and
good.
we won't.
Then we don't have to worry about
but essentially the dividing line is a firecracker.
Right.
Right, okay. Anything that goes bang.
it. Now, we're sure that the selectmen can do this, or is this does this have to go to town meeting for approval?
That,
I know it says
that
the
I'm not
selectmen's
sure.
ordinance.
It's all whatever chapter 31 is in the RSA's.
Well, I don't,
And that gives the town the powers to enact.
Right, but usually, unless the town meeting has given the board the authority to do something, then town meeting has to approve it.
Right.
The selectmen, as far as selectmen ordinances go, you have very limited, the board has very limited power to actually enact an ordinance. So I will check with town council to make sure that
Right.
you can do this.
Well, if we can't,
If
then
you
let's-
can't, then you need to put it, you wanna put it on the warrant.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
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 Okay. Some of these things the town has given you the authority to do, so
Right, and
we'll
it,
check.
it all goes to the chapter or
Yeah.
RSA 31 in the state, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that gives the selectmen authority to do that if the town adopted it
Right.
at some point.
Right. Okay.
So again, this is just a draft, so you just hear feedback.
Right,
We'll-
Well done, good job.
yeah, great job, yeah, I.
So you're okay with this
Yeah, yeah.
format?
Right, you're gonna
Right.
check with town
Yep,
council,
I'll check with
and
town
if
council.
we can if we can do it, I think you're thinking you need to hold a public hearing.
There's a public hearing required, you take any input and then you vote.
If not, we'll get it, what
And
would it be, a warrant article?
It'll be a warrant article at town meeting if you can adopt it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. New business calendar reviews, let's do that first. I don't know, anything coming up, Mark? When are we going to do the hearings on the budget?
The hearings on the budget are scheduled for is that the 5th or the 4th, that Wednesday? The 5th.
Of,
5th of February. Now, we will have to post, like next week, we'll have to post the notice in the paper. So for the bond issue, I'm gonna post one bond issue for the warrant, and that's for the building,
okay, and at what time is the budget hearing gonna be?
6 p.m. over at the rec.
Okay,
And is that after our regular meeting? Or
No,
whenever?
that's the Wednesday before your regular meeting. Your regular meeting's on the
Okay.
12th.
Okay.
And when is the school?
The school one,
budget
it's
the next
either
one?
that Monday or the following Monday. It's either the 2nd or the
You'll let us know.
9th. I will let you know. Can you write that? That'll be an action item. Get the date. I can't remember if it's the 2nd or the 9th. So I'm gonna have a $228,038 warrant article, right? I'm rounding it off to the 800,000.
right,
And that's what because our public notice, remember, we actually hold 2 hearings that night. One for the bond issue, because it's over $100,000.
well,
And one for
let me ask you, that raises an interesting question. We can either ask for 800,000 for the building and turn the other money back in because we haven't spent it.
Well, no, we'd have to put another warrant article to rescind the other money.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it stays in effect until it's rescinded.
Whatever we do, we can say we only need the authority to raise another 225 because we have this
Right.
previous money we
Right.
haven't
Total
spent.
cost is going
But we
down.
ought to present this as a building costing 800,000.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
How would, so it's not worth it to get 2 warrant articles and they'll approve one, not approve the other, and then
We
we're
won't have any money.
well, then we're stuck. We're twice as much money as we need, or
Right,
you know.
yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so, all right. Yep,
We
All
were
right.
still-
So our
we
next
were still
selectmen's
on-
meeting is on the 22nd, right?
Yes, and
Yes.
the only issue is that is opening night for Oliver, and I don't know when they're gonna have us show up, and I'm thinking it's probably gonna be 2 hours before performance time,
All
which
right.
is 7.
How about can we, well, to make it a little easier on you, Margaret, should we try to move that to Tuesday, the 21st?
Okay with me.
do you wanna do it in the morning? 'Cause
Would
you have
you,
rehearsals.
I don't
don't you?
have my rehearsal schedule
Okay.
for
Send
out
an
that
email
far
or
yet.
something.
Oh yeah, you
So
may
let
have a
me
rehearsal
send
on the
you-
21st.
Yeah, so
Right.
let me
Right.
send you an email once I
Okay.
know what the rehearsal schedule
Okay.
is, and we'll figure it out.
Right. If we need to move it to the morning, I think that'd work.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And town meeting looks like it's when?
11th?
Tuesday the 11th.
The 11th, Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
See, I don't have to write these down because you guys will let me know.
All right. So you want to talk about the bond, the $482,000 bond bid results?
Yes, we received one bid. I received a phone call. We sent it out to our 3 normal banks that we send them to.
Yeah.
Citizens, Northway, and Meredith Village. We received one bid back from Meredith Village. Citizens Bank called me and said, we'd like you to continue to send us your notices, but we won't be bidding on anything because there's just they don't feel that it's in their interest to take these small notes. If it were a multi-million-dollar project, they might be interested.
Or if we were
but-
doing business with them.
Or if we had all of our accounts
Yeah.
with them, then
Okay.
we would probably.
But their rates weren't better than anyone else when they were bidding.
No, no. The thing that bothered me though, I was communicating by email with Northway Bank to give them some additional information.
Right.
They did not send a bid in. They sent a letter that was opened at the bid opening that said that they were not bidding because they did not have enough information. I have not been able to talk to the vice president in charge of making these bids. I feel bad about that because if we didn't communicate something
Right,
to
we-
them, then I feel that's my fault. That's not.
But do we want to
Their
table
fault.
this and rebid it?
I would like to have you tell me to contact Meredith Village because there is a time limit on their bid.
Yeah.
Ask them if they'll extend their bid or offer them the opportunity to bid again. Have another bid opening on the 21st
Yeah.
and find out from Northway
What was
What-
missing?
we're missing.
Yeah, but what you don't know with Northway, whether that was just a convenient form letter to say we're not bidding.
Well, if I go talk to Northway first and they say, no, if you extend it to the 21st, we still won't bid.
Is there any
Then I would
chance that
accept-
interest rates might go up between?
Yeah, they're going up.
Yeah, but they're
mean,
not gonna go up.
I don't wanna say what this interest rate is publicly right now,
Sure.
just because if Northway's gonna bid.
Oh,
Um,
why don't we cross the bridge when we come to it? Why don't you get a clarification from Northway? And if Northway is willing to submit a bid, we'll open the bids on the 21st. If not, we can
Just
communicate with
accept this
bidder.
bid.
Just accept the, okay,
Right.
alright, good.
We gotta sign the water and sewer warrant for the fourth quarter.
Yes, I have it here somewhere.
You still got that cold, huh?
Oh, well, I'm glad to have the cold. Yeah, the cold is going away now. It's much better than the stomach flu, or
Tom,
whatever that was. It
I
wasn't
don't know
flu.
if Tom has the flu or,
It was
Well,
There
just
is
I
a-
just heard
cold-
yesterday
a lot of
that
flu
there's
around New
H1N1 is around
yes.
big time.
I don't think I have that, but
I hope not. Cause if you do.
well, I
we
got
all
my
do.
flu shot, so
Oh,
I.
you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it'll probably, I got the shot too, it's probably for the wrong flu.
No, they
No,
said
they said
did.
it's the H1N1
Yeah.
and that they have included that in all of the vaccines that they're giving.
Do we need a motion to?
You can make a motion to sign the warrant as presented for the fourth quarter.
I'll
water
make a
and sewer.
motion to sign the warrant for the water sewer commitment for the fourth quarter of 2013.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sharon, would you run upstairs real quick and get the ZBA application so that I can show it to them and talk to them
Yes.
about it?
All right, so I did read your memo on the ZBA.
Yeah.
and we're running out of candidates, right?
Yes.
And we've got one person volunteered to.
One person has volunteered, Kevin Brayton has
Yeah, would be
volunteered
fine.
to serve. I'd recommend moving him into the alternate position. Jean Mullen is currently an alternate.
Make her a full-time?
We may have to
Yeah.
very soon. Yeah.
Well, she
Um,
should be fine. She's a
And
lawyer.
then, oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. And then we will still have 2 vacancies, one of whom I'm hoping that Eric will be able to move into one of the alternate vacancies, which
Okay.
would still leave us with 1. So if you have any input,
Mike Mullin said he would get involved.
Mike Mullen.
Right.
Okay.
Is it okay to have a husband and wife on the?
Oh, that's right.
I don't see why not. I don't know. They're quasi. I don't think it's a good idea.
No, I didn't even think of that when I thought about this.
Maybe if he'd be willing, maybe there's somebody on the planning board who would like to move over to the ZBA, then he could serve on the planning board perhaps. I mean, I'm just throwing that out.
I think it'd be better. It'd be a better sequence to have somebody spend some time in the planning board before
Mhm.
going on to the ZBA anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, why don't we ask him to see if he'd be willing to get involved? as
Because
an
don't
alternate
we
on
have
the
a
planning board?
vacancy in the alternates on the planning board? I think we do. I think there's 1. So there's a place for him already.
And we could raise that to Ray. Is there anybody who would like to participate in the ZBA? They could not be on both, right?
That's correct.
Right.
That's
But I mean, essentially the ZBA, unless, I mean,
They don't meet, I mean, I
They
think
don't
they
meet
meet
very
once
regularly.
or twice a year,
Right,
other than
unless there's an issue
meetings.
comes up,
Yeah,
right.
other than a application.
All right, so we need a motion to
Appoint
appoint
Kevin.
Kevin Brayton as an alternate to the ZBA. All right?
I'll second.
Aye. Okay.
And we're gonna talk to Mike
Well,
about,
yeah, about getting involved in the planning board, and then I guess you ought to talk to Ray. If he agrees to do it, then we ought to talk to Ray about whether we can find somebody on the planning board that would consider, moving off of the planning board
well,
onto the
or
ZBA.
Mike can fill the vacancy that we have,
Now, does
Right.
someone have to be a resident to be on the ZBA?
yes.
Okay.
Which is why Nancy had
Which is why Nancy had to leave,
resign.
yeah, when we moved.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I do wanna talk to, while we're on the ZBA,
Yep.
they have an application that's before them right now. I don't know how they're going to act on the application. But one of the things that happens when they make a decision, the Board of Selectmen are supposed to look at it, because you can appeal it.
Right,
You're one of the authorities to appeal it. So they are meeting on Sunday afternoon because the applicant's from out of town, and that worked for everybody.
Right.
So they're meeting on Sunday afternoon. I don't know, I mean, I guess they're having some questions. They've already had one meeting about it.
Yes.
They're having some questions. It's a setback infringement issue on I call it the Spanish House at the bottom of
Stained glass.
Cascade Ridge.
Oh, I know,
it's
you
the
mean
You know,
the
crags?
green
the little
one,
yellow
yes.
house.
Yeah,
I call it the
right.
gas station.
Yeah, gas station. What it's been called many things. But basically, they've proposed to attach the house to the garage. And I don't. We haven't really had a situation where you guys have ever reviewed a decision. Do you want to review? Like, let's say they deny this. Do you want me to let you know that it's been denied? Because I believe you have 7 days to
Yeah,
appeal
I
it.
think anything
Yeah.
that's denied, we should know about,
Okay.
just in case an appeal comes up.
Well, and really, technically, you're supposed to decide whether you want to appeal it.
But what
The
about
Board of Selectmen
what about
can
the
appeal.
property owner?
The property
They
owner
can.
can.
Right, so if the
But-
property owner appeals.
And who does he appeal to?
He appeals to the Superior Court.
Right, well,
And I know I'm maybe jumping the gun here because they may approve it. Well, even if, when they approve it, you should look at it because you may disagree with the approval. I mean, I don't know.
The issue becomes, you got a house here that technically, this is one of these things that I was always worried about. That basically says if you got a freestanding garage,
Mhm.
you're allowed so many feet off the line,
Right.
but
But if you
if
attach
it's
it-
an attached garage, it's now considered a building.
It's not an accessory.
Right.
It's
No,
not
I
an
went through that
accessory
one.
building.
Well,
it's
it's not only
considered-
that, it's the house and the garage as they sit right now are in the setback. They were built in the setback.
So the house, was
The house was already built in the setback.
That's
and the
correct.
garage, was it grandfathered in, was it done with, by special permit?
The
No.
The garage isn't in the setback as an accessory. It's in the setback as if
How mu-
it becomes attached.
How many
But
feet
you're
is-
saying the
how many-
house violated the
How
The
many
house
feet
setback.
is the garage
violates
from
the
the
setback.
property line?
Huh?
It's
I-
10-6.
Okay,
10
so
and
How old
it's
is the
10-6 as an accessory, it's
It's
fine. If you
eight-
attach it, it's gonna be
early
15 or 20, right?
20.
Somebody
Yeah.
approved it.
No.
Well,
What's the rest of the house? Because if the garage is
They can
10-6,
do.
the garage is
Approve it.
legal as an accessory.
It is legal as an accessory building the way it sits right
Right,
now.
if you
When
attach
they
it, it's
attach
not.
it, then it's not.
No, I got you.
This is the piece of the house, probably 4 or 5 feet here on the back. 4 or 5 feet of the house is within the setback.
Within the 10 feet?
Yeah, no, within the
Within
20-foot
20 foot.
setback.
Okay.
The house is already in the
The
setback.
house is already in the
Gotcha.
setback.
see, it gets into the because I was interesting and I read about that because my wife every now and then talks about connecting the house to the
Mhm.
garage because
Yeah.
it's going to be a pain walking the ice and
Right.
snow.
Yeah.
What's the difference? When does a connection? When does a breezeway become a connection? You know, and it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
No,
suppose you connect everything but the last 32nd of an inch.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you're not connected.
Well,
We
we
did
went
the same
through.
thing with our house.
Yeah.
We
It's
went-
our house, we couldn't have put the garage in if we attached it in any
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Right.
Right.
But are you allowed a breezeway?
If you have this much of a gap,
Yeah.
Well, that's what we went through. Remember presidential? They wanted
Yeah.
to put like a 2x4 and connect the building. Oh, it was just a mess.
so that's an interesting one.
So
It's one of those things that's in the code that's kind of goofy.
okay, well, I
Right. But
guess
that's
what
their
we
problem.
should do. Well, but what we should do then
Yes.
is let them decide on Sunday. Monday, I assume Monday I'll have a decision. I will email you, and we can have a special meeting if you want to take it up. But I think
Emails. Yeah.
yeah, well,
Generally, I would think that it is an issue going the other way, where they approve something,
mhm.
and we felt, felt very strongly that they violated
Right.
their authority in
Right.
approving it, But if they say no, I'm hard pressed to come up with a rationale of why we could say yes.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I would be inclined to think that if it is approved, it's not a real problem because the setback does not encroach on anybody's building.
Well, they have a letter from the folks, the abutters,
saying it's okay with them.
saying it's okay with them.
Well, the
So-
abutters would be the road based on.
No, the
garage.
abutters would be up the hill, what's her name?
Hollings. Yeah.
No,
No.
Bev's on the
No,
other side of
Bev's
the road.
on the
She's
other
a
side of
butter.
the road, she's
Or-
okay.
Not Murphy,
Well.
Is it-
not Lehman.
It's in the letters right in that.
Well, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tracy
Let us
Barnett.
know by,
Art Tommaso.
by email the outcome either way,
Okay.
but we'll go from there.
All right, good, thank you.
No more privilege of the floor. Do you have anything else, Mark?
No, we talked about the website, so we're all set with
Do you
that.
wanna talk about this?
Yes, yes, you asked for the backup on I did not do the letter because I wanted you to look at the letter for the response to Cascade Ridge and Moose Run homeowners associations. These are the warrant articles and the minutes on the warrant articles for both of them in 2008. petition. And you can see on the maps, on both of the maps, the green portion is the road, and the purple portion, and we did discuss it during the meeting. The purple portion is the
Culverts?
culverts and the systems that we adopted along with the road. So in the case of Moose Run, there isn't any purple. The purple are the turnarounds.
Mhm.
The green is the entire right-of-way that was deeded to the town, and that includes their ditches. So I didn't delineate
Right.
the purple. On Cascade Ridge, however, there was the ditches plus another area, like down by the Sununu's cul-de-sac at the top, very top of the hill. That is a very large stone swale
Mhm.
Right.
that's in that purple area. That's in addition to the ditch line. Pardon me. Coming around by Beanbender, that's the area from the pump station and all that rock there, on the right-hand side of the road as you're going up, right? And then the corner, the sharp corner, there's an area where the culverts, and this is the spot that Jim was talking about. This is the area where the culverts empty out into and actually get picked up by another culvert and taken down to the bottom of the hill. We did not assume the detention basin at the bottom of the hill. That's the homeowners association's responsibility.
So, okay, so in the case of, let's take a more, which one should we look at first? The Cascade Ridge one?
Okay.
Basically there it says, and adjacent drainage systems,
Yeah,
and your understanding of that would be all of the ditch along the side of the road plus those areas delineated in purple.
that's correct. And that's what we told town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else is, from our perspective, is not part of, is not our responsibility. It's
That's
not
correct.
part of the drainage system.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, so basically that huge retention basin down the bottom, and I don't think there's an issue right now with
No,
that,
there's not.
but is not our, we would not maintain that.
That's correct.
Necessary. Now, in the case of Moose Run, same thing. It's curious. Moose Run uses different words. It says adjacent drainage ditches.
Because there weren't these areas in purple,
Okay.
like Cascade Ridge.
Well, curiously here, it is clear that the pond sitting out on the golf course ain't part of this.
That's correct. Now,
Right.
the one mistake that
Well,
we
we
may have
pumped
made.
it by mistake.
Well, no, yes, that's correct.
Right.
I think the deed that Cantlin, the homeowners association, wrote to us, there is a piece, not the pond,
There are two sections of
but
that pond.
there's a pipe that feeds into the detention area at the end
Right,
of the
it's-
pond.
Right.
Okay.
It's there's a deviation there. It's like having
That's
a,
right.
it's like having a hot tub and a pool.
That's correct.
Right.
And that's right.
Right. There's a forebay.
There's a
and then-
forebay and then
right,
the
a
pond.
regular pond.
Right. The pipe that leads into the forebay
Right.
comes back to a manhole.
Right.
Okay, and then culvert pipes underground come into that manhole structure and then enter into the pipe into the forebay.
Right.
I believe that the deed that they wrote to us says that we're responsible for that manhole and the pipe to the forebay, nothing in the pond, but that piece. We did not delineate that when we took it at town meeting.
But we
So-
signed the deed.
Well, there was no
Well-
need for us to. They signed it over to us. There was no. Town meeting took the action of accepting the road.
Right, but
and
my
the drainage.
definition be what town meeting accepted is what's written
That's
here,
right,
which
and,
is the
and
drainage ditches.
I think we need to tell the homeowners association that it is just the road ditches
And the road.
and the road.
Except,
And
that's what-
except they're gonna look at that and say that what do you call it, four pond?
The
Forebay.
forebay.
Forebay is a drainage ditch.
I
Okay,
don't think by this see this
Well,
it
but-
talks about adjacent drainage ditches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but-
not adjacent
that's
to the
right.
road at
When-
all.
But
That's
doesn't the culvert, the pipe can constitute the adjacency?
I don't know.
See, that's the
Well,
question I
that's
would
the
an
ask.
issue,
unknown
we
area.
didn't write it, we didn't, like, if we had colored it in, and
Right.
actually the pipe runs down like this and then runs into the pond over here, okay? If we had colored a piece of purple here,
Right, no, I was.
then it
so
would have
no,
been, it would have been
Yeah.
clear that that pipe was ours and we should maintain it. But we didn't tell town meeting that. And so I think we need to get that clarified with the homeowners association, what is the expectation? Because
Yeah,
Right.
right
I
now,
agree.
town meeting has not authorized us to maintain that in any way,
Mhm.
Right.
shape or form.
Mhm.
So I'll sit down with the homeowners association representatives
Right.
on Moose Run and try to get that clarified.
Get that clarified. Now, relative to Cascade Ridge, the other issue that came up with Cascade Ridge is they claim they have a document which lays out our responsibilities. As far as we're concerned,
never
we
accepted
never
that.
accepted those
That's correct.
responsibilities. And we don't feel any obligation to maintain anything to that standard.
Okay.
We'll maintain it to the town standard.
Right,
And that's whatever we decide it is,
right,
right?
that's correct.
Okay. But we do agree that these purple areas are our
They are our responsibility.
responsibility. Okay. Anything else on that, Mark?
No, unless you have any other.
Board concerns and directives? There were a couple of follow-up items that were in the minutes. I think we've covered all of those, right?
Yes, we did. Now, Sharon has developed a little list that I'm gonna start attaching to your packet,
Okay,
okay? It's just gonna be an action item list,
right, good.
so anytime we add anything, we'll have a record of it, and we can actually make it part of the meeting discussion, so we don't forget anything. I just wanted to say to Margaret and Mike, thank you for the feedback. Bill talked to me after your discussion, and thank you for the feedback. The bonus, I appreciate it, and glad
Good.
we're doing what we need to do. And
Yep,
I will get my list of goals and objectives updated for 14 and
right.
add in the new
Well,
stuff here.
would you get the, yeah, and I'd like to, this time we should, spend some time
Yeah, we
trying
can
to
do
go
that at the
over
next
them and
meeting,
agree. Okay, good. We need to go into non-public?
or 21st.
we do non-public stuff, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
This is the stuff.